You wake up every day and you think you know who you are. You have a name, a job, a role you play in the lives of others. You have preferences, habits, routines that feel like they define you. But here's the question that changes everything. Are you actually living as yourself? Or are you performing a version of you that you think the world needs to see? Carl Jung spent his entire life studying this exact phenomenon. He called it the persona, the mask we wear to navigate society. And what he discovered was both liberating and terrifying. Most people never remove that mask. Most people die without ever meeting their true self. They live their entire existence playing a character, following a script written by parents, culture, expectations, and fear. They mistake the performance for the person. They confuse the role with reality. You need to understand something fundamental right now. The version of yourself that you present to the world is not who you are. It's a constructed identity, carefully curated over years of conditioning. You learned early that certain parts of you were acceptable and others were not. You learned that expressing certain emotions got you love and others got you rejection. So you adapted. You became strategic. You created a persona that could survive, that could be liked, that could succeed. And somewhere in that process, you buried your true self so deep that you forgot it existed. Jung called this buried part of you the shadow. It's everything you've rejected, denied, suppressed, and hidden away because it didn't fit the image you needed to maintain. It's the anger you were taught to swallow. It's the creativity you were told was impractical. It's the wildness you learned to control. It's the vulnerability you decided was weakness. Your shadow is not evil. It's simply everything you couldn't afford to be and still receive love, acceptance, and belonging. And here's what's happening to you right now, whether you realize it or not. Your shadow is running your life from the darkness. The parts of yourself that you refuse to acknowledge don't disappear. They go underground and operate from there. They influence your choices, your relationships, your self-sabotage, your patterns, your attractions, your repulsions. Everything you deny in yourself becomes a puppet master pulling strings you can't see. Think about the people who irritate you most, the ones who trigger something visceral in you. Jung understood that these reactions are mirrors. What you despise in others is almost always what you've repressed in yourself. The person whose confidence you find arrogant might be reflecting the self-assurance you've never allowed yourself to claim. The person whose sensitivity you find annoying might be showing you the emotions you've spent years numbing. Your external judgments are internal rejections playing out on the stage of other people's lives. This is why finding your true self isn't some peaceful meditation retreat fantasy. It's not about lighting candles and feeling good. It's about confronting everything you've spent your life running from. It's about turning around and facing the parts of yourself that you've exiled into the shadows. It's about integration, not perfection. It's about becoming whole, not becoming good. Jung called this process individuation. It's the journey of becoming who you actually are instead of who you think you should be. And it's the most essential work you will ever do, because without it, you're just a collection of other people's expectations wearing a human suit. Without it, you're living a borrowed life. Without it, you're sleeping through your own existence. So how do you actually find your true self? How do you separate the authentic from the performance? How do you remove a mask you've been wearing so long you can't feel it anymore? First, you have to recognize that you're wearing one. This is harder than it sounds because your persona has become your identity. You've told yourself the same story about who you are for so many years that it feels like truth. You say things like, I am just not a creative person, or I am naturally anxious, or I have always been the responsible one. And you believe these statements are describing your essence when they are actually describing your adaptation. Your true self didn't emerge from adaptation. It existed before you learned what the world wanted from you. Think back to who you were before you understood consequences, before you learned to read the room, before you discovered that certain versions of you were rewarded and others were punished. That child who played without self-consciousness, who felt without filtering, who wanted without justification. That was closer to your true self than the person you've become. But you can't just regress to childhood. Individuation isn't about returning to innocence, it's about moving forward with integration. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself you abandoned while keeping the wisdom you've gained. It's about bringing the shadow into the light and choosing consciously what you want to embody, instead of letting unconscious conditioning decide for you. This means you have to get brutally honest about your life right now. Look at your relationships. Are you actually choosing these people, or are you maintaining connections out of obligation, fear, or habit? Look at your career. Is this what you authentically want? Or is this what you thought you were supposed to want? Look at your daily choices. How many of them are actually yours, and how many are you making on autopilot, following a program installed decades ago? Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Read that again. The patterns you think are just bad luck or circumstance are often repetitions of unconscious beliefs and unintegrated shadow material. You keep attracting the same type of toxic relationship because you haven't integrated the part of yourself that was wounded in childhood. You keep self-sabotaging success because you haven't confronted the part of you that doesn't believe you deserve it. You keep feeling empty despite achievement because you're achieving someone else's definition of success, not your own. The work of finding your true self requires courage most people don't have. It requires you to question everything you think you know about yourself. It requires you to sit with discomfort. It requires you to feel the emotions you've been avoiding. It requires you to admit that the identity you've built might be a prison disguised as safety. One of Jung's most powerful techniques was active imagination. This isn't daydreaming. This is a deliberate practice of engaging with the contents of your unconscious. You sit with whatever arises, images, feelings, symbols, memories, and you dialogue with them instead of pushing them away. You ask your anxiety what it's trying to protect you from. You ask your rage what boundary was violated. You ask your shame what truth it's trying to hide. You treat these shadow aspects as parts of yourself that need to be heard, not enemies that need to be destroyed. Most people spend their entire lives at war with themselves. They're constantly trying to eliminate, fix, improve, or transcend the parts of themselves they deem unacceptable. But Jung understood that this internal warfare is precisely what keeps you fragmented. You can't hate yourself into wholeness. You can't reject your way to integration. The shadow doesn't need to be killed, it needs to be understood, acknowledged, and integrated. This is where the real work happens. Integration means you stop pretending you're only light. You stop performing the role of the person who has it all together. You stop hiding your anger, your sadness, your desires, your fears. You start being honest about your complexity. You start admitting when you're struggling. You start expressing needs instead of pretending you don't have any. You start setting boundaries instead of martyring yourself for acceptance. And here's what happens when you do this. The people who loved your persona start getting uncomfortable. They liked the version of you that was predictable, manageable, safe. They benefited from your self-abandonment. So when you start showing up as your true self, with edges, with needs, with boundaries, with authenticity, some of them will try to pull you back into the mask. They'll say you're changing. They'll say you're being selfish. They'll say they miss the old you. What they mean is, I miss the version of you that required nothing from me and made me feel comfortable. This is the loneliest part of individuation. You will lose people. You will lose versions of yourself. You will lose the comfort of conformity. But what you gain is immeasurably more valuable. You gain yourself. You gain sovereignty. You gain the ability to exist in the world without constantly performing, pretending, or people-pleasing. You gain the freedom to live from your center instead of from everyone else's expectations. Jung also talked about the self with a capital S, the organizing principle of the psyche, the totality of who you are. The self includes both conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, persona, and authentic nature. The journey to the self is the journey of individuation. It's not about reaching some final destination where you're perfectly enlightened. It's about the ongoing process of becoming more and more of who you actually are. One of the clearest signs you're living from persona instead of self is exhaustion. When you're constantly performing, constantly managing how others perceive you, constantly editing yourself to fit in, it's draining. You feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You feel disconnected from your own life. You feel like you're watching yourself from the outside instead of inhabiting your own experience. This exhaustion is your psyche telling you that something is fundamentally wrong. This exhaustion is the cost of self-abandonment. Your true self doesn't require constant maintenance. Your true self doesn't need elaborate justifications. Your true self doesn't operate from fear of judgment. When you're aligned with who you actually are, there's an ease that emerges, not because life becomes easy, but because you're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer spending energy maintaining a facade. You're no longer fracturing yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. But finding your true self also means confronting your destiny. Jung believed that each person has a unique path, a unique way of being in the world. Your true self isn't just a personality, it's a calling. It's the specific contribution only you can make. It's the life only you can live. And most people never answer this calling because doing so would require them to disappoint the people they've been trying to please their entire lives. Think about what you would do if no one's approval mattered. Think about who you would be if you weren't afraid of judgment. Think about the life you would build if you trusted yourself completely. That distance between who you are now and who you would be in that scenario. That's the gap between your persona and your true self. That's the terrain of individuation. The path forward requires you to start paying attention to what makes you come alive, not what impresses other people, not what looks good on paper, not what your family expected, but what actually lights you up from the inside. It might be something you've dismissed as impractical, frivolous, or impossible. It might be something you've been afraid to admit you want. It might be something that terrifies you precisely because it matters so much. Your true self is already trying to communicate with you. It speaks through your dreams, your longings, your unexplained dissatisfaction, your moments of aliveness, your creative urges, your resistances. Jung said that dreams are letters from the unconscious. Your dreams are showing you what you've repressed, what you need to integrate, what you're avoiding. But most people ignore their dreams, dismiss them as random noise, when they're actually the voice of the self trying to guide you toward wholeness. Start writing down your dreams. Start asking what they might be revealing about your shadow, your desires, your path. Start treating your inner world with as much attention as you give to your external obligations. Start honoring the messages your psyche is sending, instead of numbing them with distraction, busyness, or substance. This process will not be comfortable. Integration requires you to face everything you've been avoiding. It requires you to feel the grief of time lost living as someone else. It requires you to admit the ways you've betrayed yourself for belonging. It requires you to take responsibility for your life instead of blaming circumstances, other people, or bad luck. Individuation is not for the faint of heart. It's for people who would rather be whole than comfortable. And you will face resistance. Your ego, the part of you that identifies with the persona, will fight to maintain control. Your ego believes it's keeping you safe. It believes the persona is necessary for survival. So when you start dismantling the mask, your ego will create fear, doubt, and anxiety. It will tell you you're making a mistake. It will tell you to go back to who you were. It will tell you that being yourself is dangerous. But here's the truth Jung discovered. The real danger is not in being yourself. The real danger is in living your entire life as someone else and never knowing what you missed. The real danger is reaching the end and realizing you spent decades performing for an audience that didn't matter, while your true self waited in the wings, unacknowledged and unlived. You have to decide what kind of life you want. Do you want comfort or truth? Do you want approval or authenticity? Do you want to fit in or do you want to belong to yourself? These are not easy questions and they don't have easy answers. But they are the questions that separate those who find their true self from those who die without ever meeting themselves. Start small. Start with one area where you've been pretending. Maybe it's a relationship where you never say what you really think. Maybe it's a job you hate but won't leave because of what people might say. Maybe it's a version of yourself you present online that's completely disconnected from how you actually feel. Pick one place where you've been wearing a mask and try taking it off. Tell the truth. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it risks disapproval. Even when it might change things. Start practicing honesty, with yourself first, then with others. Stop agreeing when you disagree. Stop laughing at things that aren't funny. Stop pretending to be fine when you're not. Stop performing enthusiasm for things you don't care about. Every moment of authentic expression is a step toward your true self. And when the resistance comes, and it will come, remind yourself why this matters. Remind yourself that you have one life. Remind yourself that fitting into a shape that was never meant for you is a betrayal of your existence. Remind yourself that the people who can't handle the real you were never your people anyway. Remind yourself that sovereignty is worth every uncomfortable conversation, every lost relationship, every moment of uncertainty. Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who your parents wanted you to be, not who your culture expected, not who your trauma shaped you into, but who you are at your core, beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the defense mechanisms, beneath all the fear. Your true self is not somewhere far away. It's not something you need to search for in ancient texts or distant countries. It's right here, right now, underneath everything you've piled on top of it. It's the part of you that knows when something feels right even if you can't explain why. It's the part of you that feels relief when you finally stop pretending. It's the part of you that comes alive when you do the thing everyone said you shouldn't. Finding your true self means honoring that inner knowing, even when it contradicts everything you've been taught. It means trusting yourself more than you trust the chorus of external voices telling you who to be. It means choosing discomfort in the service of truth over comfort in the service of lies. This journey will cost you. It will cost you relationships that were based on your false self. It will cost you the approval of people who preferred your persona. It will cost you the comfort of unconsciousness. But what you gain is beyond measure. You gain the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize the person looking back. You gain the capacity to make choices from your center instead of from fear. You gain a life that actually belongs to you. The world doesn't need more people performing the same acceptable version of human. The world needs people who have done the work of individuation. The world needs people who have integrated their shadow. The world needs people who have found their true self and have the courage to live from it. That's not selfish, that's essential. That's not indulgent, that's necessary. So I'm asking you again, are you real? Is the life you're living actually yours, or are you inhabiting someone else? Is vision of who you should be? Are you making choices from your authentic self or from a persona you created to survive? Are you awake, or are you sleepwalking through your own existence? These questions don't have comfortable answers, but they are the questions that matter. They are the questions Jung dedicated his life to exploring. They are the questions that separate a life lived from a life performed. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You don't have to completely transform overnight. But you do have to start. You have to start paying attention. You have to start questioning. You have to start being honest. You have to start taking off the mask, piece by piece, until you remember what your face actually looks like underneath. This is the work. This is individuation. This is how you find your true self, not through some magical revelation, but through the daily practice of choosing authenticity over acceptance, truth over comfort, wholeness over perfection. It's through the courage to face your shadow, integrate what you find there, and emerge as someone who is finally, completely, undeniably yourself. The path is not easy, but it's the only path worth taking. Because at the end of your life, you won't regret the times you were too much, too honest, too real. You'll regret the times you were too small, too careful, too concerned with what others thought. You'll regret the moments you chose the persona over the person. You'll regret the years you spent being someone else when you could have been yourself. Don't let that be your story. Don't reach the end and realize you never actually lived. Don't die with your true self still buried under layers of conditioning and fear. Do the work. Face the shadow, remove the mask, find yourself. And when you do, when you finally meet the person you've always been underneath everything, you'll understand what Jung meant when he said that becoming yourself is the privilege of a lifetime. You'll understand that every uncomfortable conversation, every lost relationship, every moment of uncertainty was worth it. You'll understand that sovereignty is the only thing that matters. You'll understand that you can finally breathe because you're no longer suffocating under the weight of a false identity. This is your invitation. This is your call to individuate. This is your chance to stop performing and start living. The question is, will you answer it? If this resonated with you, if something in you recognized the truth of what we've explored here, then subscribe to this channel. We're dedicated to the kind of content that doesn't just entertain but transforms. We're exploring the depths of what it means to be human, to be conscious, to be real. Hit the like button if you're committed to doing this work. Leave a comment telling me one way you've been wearing a mask and one step you're going to take to remove it. Let's build a community of people who are done pretending and ready to live. And remember, your true self is not lost, it's just buried. And the work of excavation, the work of individuation, the work of becoming who you actually are, that work is the most important work you will ever do. This is only the beginning. In the next video, we're going deeper into Jung's concept of the shadow and exploring exactly how to integrate the parts of yourself you've rejected. You won't want to miss it. Until then, stay needed. Stay true, stay sovereign,